The individuals who have autoimmune conditions in the US, 80% of them are women. That's a big data point. Why? If we see that women have this issue and we know that there's this deep correlation, what other influence does it have? And it just kind of was like this light bulb. Like, wait, women do have this 28-day hormone cycle that influences everything. Can't tell you how many doctors have, said the thing like it's just your mom brain, you're just overwhelmed, right? No, like women are baddies. Like we can handle a lot. You have to be eating every 3 hours. My plate looks like a protein, a carb, a phase, fruit, or veggie, right? That is like how simple I make all of my meals. I firmly believe that every food has the power to be a superfood if you know how to use it correctly. I even say, like, again, if you have really good metabolic flexibility, you'll catch me eating candy right before a big lift. And I was a mad cardio bunny. I was afraid to get bulky. I didn't want to look big. I wanted toned muscle, which now hindsight, I'm looking at all of those like trigger words and I'm like, good God. Strength training is the single most impactful modality of movement possible.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Gut Check podcast. We have a wonderful conversation ahead of us today with Tasha Stevens. Tasha, thank you for being on the podcast.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Oh my gosh.
I,
So much fun stuff to talk about.
I was just telling Tasha offline that her reputation precedes her. There's tons of overlap and network and all the wonderful things that she's been sharing on social media around hormone health, women's health. So this will be a wonderful conversation, but let's just start and dive in as we usually do with your background. So if you don't mind just introducing yourself to the audience and how you got going in what you're doing now.
Absolutely. Hi, I'm so happy to be here. I'm Tasha. So, the funny, like if you were to like meet me where I'm at right now, it's like I am a clinical nutritionist, certified personal trainer, and I founded our company, Happy Hormone Health. But really, I feel like the end or just where I'm at now is not so much as important as like where it all started. Um, what do they call it? That origin story, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I I feel like honestly, ever since I was the age of 9, I just felt so uncomfortable in my body. I did get my
Mm.
period when I was 9. Um,
Whoa.
I've been the same height since I was 9, which is
Whoa.
only 5'3", not that tall, but that's actually very tall for a 9-year-old. And at that time, that was when I really like just kind of got into health and fitness because I was so confused why I didn't look or feel like any of my peers, right? I was just
Mhm.
like, okay, all of my other women, girls my age are skinny and tiny, and I
Mhm.
was not.
Mhm.
And so it just kind of started this like downward spiral of like I did my first workout program when I was 9. I did Turbo Jam. If you know, you know.
Ooh.
I got my hands on a Teen Vogue when I was 9, and I started my first diet, which that was the 2000s. So you can guarantee it was low carb, low carb, special K, all that fun
Yeah.
stuff. And it just like from there, it just kept getting worse. Like I had horrible periods. I all of a sudden started getting skin rashes. I was gaining weight at, a rate that I felt was really, fast for a woman.
Mhm.
And I was in and out of doctor's offices just with complaints of like, hey, my periods are super heavy. They're happening
Mhm.
twice a month. I have these skin rashes. I'm going to the bathroom all the time. And every single doctor, like all the way up through my adolescence, was just like, this is normal. Like, not, we don't see anything wrong. And I was like, how is this normal? Like, I don't understand. And so that pursuit led me to be like, okay, well, I'm going to get my degree in nutrition. Like, I'm going to figure
Mhm.
it out if nobody
Yeah.
can tell me. And when I was in college, that's when I got diagnosed with my first two autoimmune conditions. So at the time, I was super
Mm.
sick, couldn't keep food down. I got diagnosed with celiac and colitis at the time. And I
Wow.
was like, okay, got this. I can handle this with food. Like, it's not going to
Yeah.
be that bad. Things seemed to get back on track. I was like 19 at that time.
Mhm.
And then when I graduated with my degree, it just like hit the fan. I gained 30 pounds in a single month.
In a
I was
month.
having like in a month at
Whoa.
23, right?
Whoa.
Like again, from my understanding of traditional 23-year-old women, like you are eating
Whoa.
cake,
Yeah.
Doritos, Taco Bell, and things don't turn out that way.
Yeah.
And I was so anxious. Again, the rashes started to come back, all of this stuff. And I remember going to my doctor at the time and I was like, hey, I gained 30 pounds in a month. Like, this can't be right. I don't feel good. Like at the time I was on hormonal birth control, that my periods
Mhm.
were getting bad again. And he was like, it's just normal for women as they age.
Jeez. Jeez.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
So years of that point of like getting shuffled from doctor to doctor, being told all of my blood work was fine, having this level of education, knowing like, hey, it's not fine.
Mhm.
There are things that are happening. And when I did finally get connected to like a integrative physician who was able to
Mhm.
run some of those like tests that are a little bit more specialized, right,
Yep.
for checking other autoimmune conditions, like that's when I did get diagnosed with psoriasis. They still were just like, you only had medication and there's nothing else that we can do. And I was like, I know that's not the truth. I know that there's so much more that we can do. And at the time, I just remember even speaking to my integrative physician, I was like, my hormones have a big part in
Mhm.
this. Like, hormones play a really big role in autoimmune conditions, in
Mhm.
how our body responds to inflammation, all of these, it was kind of baseline at that point.
Mhm.
And they were just like, you're too young for that to matter.
Wow. What ultimately led you to focusing on your healing journey on hormones with the autoimmune diseases?
At that point, like, I just kind of felt I joked with my, at the time, boyfriend, who's now my husband, and full circle, we met at the gym. He's an exercise physiologist, strength and conditioning specialist. When a nutritionist meets an exercise physiologist, right? And they start talking. And I was having conversations with him, and I was like, okay, like I was like, my cycles were getting worse and worse at that point.
Yep.
We were doing more and more research, and I had told him, I was like, I'm like, I feel like I'm collecting autoimmune conditions. Like,
Yeah.
I went from having two to at one point they thought I had almost seven, right? And I was like, this just, like, my body is freaking out. What
Yeah.
is going on? And so that's when I started to do the research, and it was like women are 80% more likely to have, of the people, individuals who have autoimmune conditions in the US, 80% of them are women. That's a big data point. Why?
Jeez.
Right. And then you start to dig into, okay, well, hormones and autoimmunity have a bidirectional relationship.
Mhm.
At the, baseline framework that physicians were saying to me was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's why individual women who get pregnant or go through postpartum, that's why they develop, because that can turn on a gene. But
Mhm.
also, that same hormone disruption can trigger a flare. And then
Mhm.
when you're in an active flare, the systemic disruption that happens leads to hormone production issues, hormone filtration issues, and
Mhm.
then that imbalance, that shift away from homeostasis, feeds back into either
Mhm.
expressing more genes, right? Making your blood work go crazy. And so I was like, okay, well, if we see that women have this issue and we know that there's this deep correlation, what other influence does it have for people
Mhm.
who don't even have autoimmunity? And it kind of just went down this rabbit hole of research and getting exposed to, different integrative physicians that I worked with, what I was doing at my profession at the time. And it just kind of was like this light bulb. Like, wait,
Mhm.
women do have this 28-day hormone cycle that influences everything
Yeah.
from our metabolic rate, our energy levels, our productivity, our sex drive, social desire, all of it. So, how is it that we're not having regular conversations or just, you know, awareness of this day to day?
Why do you think that hormone health is still such a gap within women's health?
From what the research shows, it wasn't really until the 90s that women were even included in most fitness and nutrition research studies. And at the time, it was because researchers said, hey, their hormone cycle provides too much of a variability for women, right? Or for our research studies, right? So if we
Mhm.
include women, we're going to have too much variability, so we can't make a good, strong, causation or correlation, you know,
Mhm.
feedback report from this. And so, one, the research is still new, right? You think about it, like even things from the 90s are still,
Yep.
it's still not that old.
Yep.
Two, a lot of the research that is out there, you're only looking at a woman's response in a single cycle phase, right? So, like, it might only be in the luteal phase or only in the menstrual phase. So that leads to some discrepancy, right? Or some gaps. And then the other part is like, I mean, just the way that our healthcare system is set up. Like I was
Right.
just talking, we just moved to a different state, and I was speaking to my new NP who's in functional, and she's great. I love her. Like if she watches this, I want her to know I love you so much, Dr. Sal. But we were speaking about like, I was like, hey, do I need to go see an OBGYN? I need to get established with one. And she was like, well, if you're not considering having any more kids, like the now recommendation from insurance is you don't have to go until like every 5 years. So really there's this gap in our healthcare system too, where it's like, well, unless you're trying to get pregnant, your hormones don't matter. Right. And so it leaves women confused. If you're a certain age, they say it's not an issue. And it's just kind of our whole infrastructure is kind of the problem.
Yeah, for any of the listeners that don't understand this too, is the research piece, because, traditional doctors are going to always just revert back to what research is out there, what can we trust, what
Hmm.
what clinical studies have been run. And the studies, there just aren't that many on women, and they haven't been run for long enough, right? Because we do have
Nope.
such a unique cycle that you can't run a week or 2 week study. You really need to run at least probably a 90-day study so that you get 3 months of data or more. So what were some of the common everyday symptoms that you were facing that you would say are the big red flags if someone has?
Everyone is going to go, diet culture marketing to all my 90s, 2000 girls, right? I resonate with you so much. But your first, which is true, telltale sign is going to be that rapid weight gain or that
Mhm.
weight loss resistance.
Mhm.
And, a lot of that is stemmed to, again, we've been told, okay, if you just eat less, you're going to lose more weight. But
Mhm.
the body is not that simple. It's not that black and white, right?
That's right.
If your body doesn't feel safer, if it's not at like a homeostasis, then it's going to lead to certain downstream biochemical processes that are going to protect and conserve you, which typically correlate back to adding more visceral fat around the organs, which is where we see
Mhm.
belly fat,
Mhm.
preserving or learning to live off of very few calories and taking all of
Mhm.
that in excess as fat. So that's a big one, right? And again, you not shouldn't be losing 5 pounds a week every week. That's not
Yeah.
normal. But if
Yeah.
you are eating enough food, eating healthfully, engaging in workouts, and you're not seeing any weight loss or even change in your aesthetic, right? Shift in inches or lean mass development, like big red flag. Other ones that we see, which are very apparent and I just think are normalized are exhaustion, right?
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many women or doctors have, said the thing like, it's just your mom brain. You're just overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
No, like women are baddies. Like we
Yeah.
can handle a lot.
Yeah.
And so that waking up exhausted, waking up without motivation, feeling that you can't function until you get your cup of coffee or you
Mm.
need another cup of coffee to get you through the middle of the day. Those are all really big red flags that there's
Mhm.
some type of systemic disruption. And again, from a biochemical level, that is your body trying to get you to slow down to conserve energy because you don't have enough, right? It's trying to
Mhm.
protect you. Cycle irregularities, which again are very normalized, right?
Mhm.
It's not normal to have period pain. It's not normal to
Mhm.
have super, super heavy periods of clotting. It's not
Mhm.
normal to miss your period. If you're not, and a big one is again, a lot of women don't even recognize that they might not be ovulating because
Yeah.
we've been told you should only track your ovulation if you're trying to get pregnant.
Yeah.
Whereas in
Which is not
reality,
true at all. Yeah.
no, no. I mean, you only have a period
Yeah.
because you didn't get pregnant, because you ovulated,
Yeah.
right? It's like a
Yeah.
chicken egg situation.
And it's a
Um,
sign, such a vital sign of health, just
Such a
overall
vital
health.
sign of health. Yeah. And to feed off of that one, another one that's really, really overlooked, sex drive. And I think it's uncomfortable to talk about. I do feel on social media, there's more of like a movement of like women openly communicating, but again, it's not the movies. You're not going to feel frisky and you're like most like crazy self all part of your cycle. That's not norm. It's not, you know, you're not going to feel super sexy or sex drive forward on your period. That's normal.
Yeah.
However, you should have a healthy sex drive, especially around ovulation.
Right.
And you should feel that. And it's not just because you're stressed or getting older. I mean, that's a protective mechanism, but again,
Yeah.
big sign of low testosterone. So I would say those are some of the ones that I see consistently in women, right?
Yeah.
That are, that telltale. And then there's a bunch of other sub ones. But the biggest thing too that I tell my clients is every single symptom is a message from your body. Like symptoms are immediate biofeedback from the body, which is so cool, right?
Yeah.
Like your body gives you at the end of the day and at the end of your cycle almost like a full report card. And it
Yeah.
says, "Hey, this is what's going on." And I don't like to use symptoms, especially when I'm working with my clients. I'm like, okay, these aren't your Achilles heel. These aren't these things that are, going to ruin you. These are knowledge, because when you see that symptom and you understand why it's happening in your body, then you can be really
Yeah.
proactive and like, okay, this is what it's connected to, and this is how I can support it. And all of a sudden, you step away from that space of, confusion, loss of control to like, at this, I know how to support my body.
A lot of the emotional symptoms, right? So there's highs and lows, like you were saying, like during ovulation, sex drive, that's a high. Then you can have also the lows, the emotional symptoms. Curious to hear your perspective. Is there an overlap or a potential of misdiagnosis from women that are kind of just going through these cycle highs and lows? And it's really that they're not aware of an underlying hormone issue?
I would say, yeah. And I really want to, I always lean into my personal story, because like
Yeah.
if we could spend a whole hour and a half talking about just like all of the medical little roads that I got thrown down.
Yep.
But there was one point in my own, I've had some level of anxiety since I was 9, right? An
Mhm.
anxious little girl. Um, but when I was 23 and 23, 24, when things were really bad, there was a point where multiple psychiatrists were diagnosing me with bipolar disorders, off
Wow.
bipolar 2. And I remember crying to my mom. I might cry now. I'm about to
Mhm.
start my period.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember crying to my mom because I was like, that just doesn't feel like me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I've never felt that way. I've never just like been this erratic.
Yeah.
And it felt like they were siloing me into a box, full circle. Like
Mhm.
it was severe gut disruption that was leading
Mhm.
to poor estrogen filtration. And I was on birth control at the time.
Yeah.
Also severe gut disruption that was leading to low dopamine and serotonin production, really big hormones related to your chemical stability, mental stability,
Yep.
happiness,
Yep.
feeling calm. I was grossly under eating, and I had a lot
Mm.
of blood sugar dysregulation and insulin dysfunction, right? And then
Mm.
also huge suppression of, when you're on hormonal birth control, how it works is it suppresses ovulation.
Mhm.
Without ovulation, you don't produce progesterone.
Mhm.
Progesterone has a very, very large impact on, cognitive health, calming, soothing. And so I've been on hormonal birth control since I was 10.
Yep.
And so I had, at that time, 13 years of suppression of a natural hormone, right? And so looking back, like they had given me mood stabilizers and all these things, and I didn't end up, I took them for a little bit to get to a point where I felt good. But now I've been anxiety medication free for 9 years. Right? And I look back and I was like, that wasn't it. 100% was my body was in such disarray. And I did have these highs and lows of PMS, almost PMDD
Mhm.
thing, because of what was happening in my cycle. And because I was trying to force my life, or how women try to force their life into, a round peg into a square hole. And they're like, I just
Mhm.
have to continue to be uber productive, focused, eat the same amount of food, do the same workouts, perform day in, day out all the time, because that's what men do. And it just breaks us.
Importance of ovulation, even if you're not trying to get pregnant. And you
Mhm.
just mentioned progesterone. Why is it so important that we ovulate when it comes to progesterone and producing these, again, mood supporting hormones that our bodies need just to function?
Again, we're told that our period is like the start of a cycle, but
Mhm.
truly our period is the end of a hormone cycle, because from a
Mhm.
very biological perspective, again, not everyone's going to love this statement. From a very biological perspective, your body has two goals as a woman: keep
Mhm.
you alive, get pregnant,
Yep.
whether you want to or not.
Yep.
And so when you're very healthy and safe, and it says like, hey, I can keep the woman alive, then it will engage in optimal hormone production to make sure that you ovulate so that you have successful opportunity for conception. Ovulation really marks that point of like, okay, one, is it safe enough to get pregnant? And then your period happens as a byproduct of like, hey, conception didn't happen for whatever reason, right? Maybe the woman didn't try, maybe there was an opportunity, maybe there was a hormone disruption, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that period marks almost the time for your body to say, okay, I'm going to try again.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why we should be tracking ovulation, because first and foremost, if you don't ovulate, all of the subsequent later, like 14 days of your cycle, don't happen. And what happens is once you ovulate, your body releases two hormones, progesterone and estrogen. Progesterone's role is to basically like tell estrogen, yo, I need you to get up, I need you to
Yep.
lift because I need you to thicken that uterine lining.
Yep.
And progesterone stays high. So the higher that progesterone goes, the more estrogen that's produced. And the
Yep.
longer that estrogen or progesterone is there, the longer estrogen stays. The minute
Mm-hmm.
progesterone drops, that uterine lining sheds, opportunity for successful conception or then development of that baby doesn't necessarily happen. So if you're chronically stressed, one, your body might suppress ovulation, right? It might
Yep.
not even do it. That's where you would see somebody who doesn't even have a cycle, or maybe you're having a cycle every 35 days, 40 days, right? Or two, and this is where a lot of individuals live, is maybe you are ovulating, but
Mm-hmm.
progesterone is a precursor hormone for cortisol.
Yeah.
So if your body is stressed and the demand for cortisol is
Yeah.
greater than progesterone, your body will steal from those stores to make more cortisol. And
Yeah.
so then what happens, tying it all back to that mental health statement, is that hormone, progesterone, that's supposed to calm you down, soothe you, help with some, both gestation as well as like supporting estrogen, neurological benefits, right? That hormone falls.
Yeah.
And then also the hormone that spikes your fight or flight, that influences adrenaline, that
Mm-hmm.
influences your anxiety, blood sugar dysregulation, all of that, that goes up. So
Yeah.
that really swings that pendulum towards a state where there is, a lot of, anxiety, restlessness, just general disdain in
Yeah.
your life.
For so many women, they've never tracked their ovulation before. So if you've never tracked your ovulation, where to start? What do you do? How do you track your ovulation?
So the best way to start with this is obviously use your period as that marker. So the minute that your full flow is over, right? So not you're spotting on the tail end, but like your full flow where you might need to change your pad, tampon, cup multiple times a day is over. That starts day one of your follicular phase. Now, how you can test it is I do both methods to kind of
Mhm.
double check. But my favorite is either cervical fluid tracking
Yep.
or BBT tracking.
Mhm.
And so with your cervical fluid, as estrogen rises, so if
Mhm.
we think like this is your period, end of period, estrogen starts to rise like this and peak at ovulation. With that rise, there's changes in the amount of discharge that you produce.
Yep.
And you, again, both cost effective and slightly lazy, right? You could do actual cervix checks, right?
Yeah.
But most of the time, you'll be able to see this even just by checking your underwear when you go to the
Yep.
restroom. So as you get closer to ovulation, you're going to start to notice that there's like almost just like a little bit more of like a wet discharge. I
Yep.
always like kind of make the joke like it looks like, did I like pee myself a little bit? Like I don't
Yep.
remember doing that. And then as you get to peak ovulation, I always find this confusing. So I'm going to be very clear here. You are going to have uncooked egg white consistency
Yep.
discharge. I feel like you read the technical terms and they're like egg white. And I'm like, egg white
Yeah.
color, egg white consistency, uncooked egg white. So it's going to
Yeah.
be clear. It's going
Yep.
to be really stretchy. And you'll notice it when you have a bowel movement because you kind of wipe and
Mhm.
you're like,
Yep.
what?
Yep.
That is a sign that you are ovulating or in your peak ovulatory window, right?
Yep.
And how I double confirm this is same is true with BBT tracking. Break that down
Mhm.
as basal body temperature tracking.
Mhm.
As your estrogen changes, so do you have slight changes in your overall body temperature.
Mhm.
So at your period, your body temperature is going to be the lowest. And as you get towards ovulation, you are going to have a peak in your temperature. So if you take, and again, you can just use a $6 thermometer
Yep.
from Amazon, as long as it has 2 decimal points. I like to use the app Kindara
Mhm.
because you can track your cycle symptoms and your BBT chart. It'll make a BBT chart for you and it's free.
Yeah.
But what you'll notice is that trend line, you'll start to have a peak and you'll hit your highest temperature at ovulation and it should match that cervical fluid.
Mhm.
And then there's going to be a drop when you go into your luteal phase. And then as progesterone rises, you'll notice that your temperature rises again, just slightly, not as high as
Mhm.
your ovulatory. And then your cervical fluid will go to egg white color, almost
Mhm.
like a thick, clumpy. I don't want to say cottage cheese because that's very much like
Mhm.
a infection, but it is like a
Yeah.
thick white.
Yep.
Um, so super simple. And with BBT tracking, all you need to do is put that thermometer by your bed.
Yep.
When you wake up in the morning, not if you like wake up to pee to go in the middle of the like at night, right? But from when like you're waking up point, just roll over, take your temperature, and then you're good to go. That's it. Just try to do it before you move.
So if these things aren't happening, let's just say, don't freak out. What do you tell women when they're not ovulating, when these symptoms aren't happening? What is the kind of process from there? How do you guide women?
So, in the integrative nutrition realm and in this space, I really live, breathe by like, okay, if you're not ovulating, your
Mhm.
body perceives some sort of threat.
Mhm.
Because again, from a biological perspective, your body wants to keep you alive and then it
Yep.
wants to get pregnant.
Yep.
However, the minute a woman gets pregnant, your body prioritizes the baby over you. So that's why you've
Mhm.
heard so many instances of before of women getting really sick or even,
Mhm.
unfortunately, like other things happening.
Mhm.
Um, so if you're not ovulating, for some reason your body feels too stressed to safely engage in these
Mhm.
hormone production processes. We look at the pillars of stress that we can
Mhm.
control. And that's, are we nourishing our body enough?
Mhm.
Not with just whole foods, but are you physically eating enough?
Right.
Are we have we lost our stress resilience? Right. And this is
Mhm.
another big thing. A lot of social media, I think it's really confusing right now. People are like, stress is bad. Avoid stress, bad cortisol. No, cortisol, we need it. Healthy
Yeah.
levels, we need it. It's
Yeah.
that we've lost our stress resiliency.
That's right.
Right. And then also, how are, that nervous system regulation or how are you engaging in your environment? And I would say, in terms of easiness, it goes nutrition, fitness, and then this final nervous system regulation, our environment. Um, so, where I typically start with my clients is we go in and we say, okay, what is the state of your metabolic function right now?
Mhm.
A lot of us, again, 90s, 2000 girl, they say, represent,
Yeah.
we were told eat less, move more. That's how
Yep.
you lose weight. And I can't tell you, I've coached over 3,000 women worldwide.
Wow.
And I would say 99.9% of them were all under eating. On average, you have women who are eating maybe 1,200, 1,500 calories a day.
Yeah.
And that is what my 3-year-old daughter needs to eat in a
Yeah.
day.
Yep.
She's 25 pounds, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Chronically under eating. And again, your body's so smart.
Yep.
Your body recognizes, okay, if I'm not fed, if Tasha isn't safe, I am going to do whatever it takes to keep her alive. That is my job. So instead of functioning at 100% optimal system function, your body learns how to turn down the lights where
Yeah.
it's just operating at the bare minimum. And
Yeah.
so eating enough food, getting your body to feel safe to re-engage in systemic function, re-engage in hormone production, re-engage in just using that nutrients for energy versus conservation.
Yeah.
My goodness, like that, honestly, I've had women, all of my women clients see results with that. I've had women who've struggled with multiple rounds of failed IVF get pregnant within a month of coaching with us.
Wow.
And they're like, it was just eating more. I was like, yeah, it's so
Yeah.
simple. Right. And then
Yeah.
also, with that, and this is a little bit more of a complex conversation, but across your hormone cycle, your metabolic function changes, your nutrient
Mhm.
needs change. So it's not
Mhm.
just about eating more overall and strategically rebuilding that, but then learning how to nuance across your hormone cycle to make sure your body has the right energy and biochemical tools at the right time
Mhm.
to do the job that it loves and wants to do.
Let's talk about going back. You made a mention. Of course, we're super focused on this and interested in this, but let's talk about the gut, and talk about more about nutrition. So, in your practice now, this is a major part of what you do to support your clients. What are some of the kind of nutritional deficiencies that you're seeing within women that disrupt hormone balance? And then we can get into more of how the gut plays a role in that.
The biggest deficiencies that I see across the board are going to be number one, magnesium,
Mhm.
always. One, because there are 8 different forms of magnesium that you
Yep.
can and need to consume, right? And what's on the market right now, if you're going to Walgreens or Target, you're just buying citrate,
Mhm.
which is a different discussion.
Mhm.
Um, but two, when you're chronically stressed out, your body depletes magnesium stores at a
Mhm.
much, much, much faster rate. So even if you are supplementing, if you are still chronically stressed, we're going to
Mhm.
see huge depletion of that. And magnesium is just essential for rebuilding the gut lining, cognitive function, hormone
Mhm.
production, everything. Zinc is really big too. Zinc is really, really important for just intestinal integrity. However, from a hormonal perspective, and again, I think this is really overlooked in women, it's zinc is essential for testosterone production. And kind of looping it back to our previous conversation about ovulation, if you don't have ample levels of testosterone, you don't ovulate. So making sure that you have enough zinc to make sure that your intestinal lining, your tight junctions are secure, things good to go. And then also that you can absorb, utilize testosterone. And then vitamin D.
Yep.
Again, vitamin D is a nutrient, but it's also a pro hormone. It's immune modulating. It reduces a ton of inflammation.
Yeah.
And I think both one, vitamin D is kind of hard to get in diet alone. And then with
Mhm.
the surge of, again, I'm not anti sunscreen. I'm like, let's be smart about it, folks.
Yep.
But with the rise of more and more sunscreen and putting it on and lathering it on, that does impede our ability to absorb vitamin D from the sun. And then also most Americans or most individuals are working in fluorescent lights, not around windows, not getting that same exposure that they do. So magnesium, zinc, vitamin D, those are kind of like my go-to ones. And, making sure this is the other part of it too is I'm not huge or crazy in just random supplementation. I like to do
Right.
as much as I can with whole foods. But
Mhm.
the a big conversation around making sure that your gut is happy is making
Mhm.
sure your stress is good.
That's
And
right.
again, if you are not eating enough
Mhm.
and things are not good, then your body will become stressed. That gut brain axis is going to lead to degradation of that gut lining.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, even if you are taking all the supplements in the world, all the probiotics in the world, you're
That's
still
right.
not having a healthy, viable gut because
That's
your body's
right.
not getting enough nourishment.
This is a nuanced question, but what are some of the core aspects of nutrition that you recommend your clients change to support their hormone health?
So, first and foremost, you have to be eating every 3 hours, right?
Mhm.
And I don't like, maybe let's say 3 to 5, because
Mhm.
I don't love absolutes because I do believe there's a lot
Yeah.
of bioindividuality, a lot of things
Yep.
that go on, right? But if you're eating every 3 to 5 hours, one, that's going to help you get to a point where you are consuming enough for your body
Mhm.
to feel safe. It's going to help modulate or regulate your cortisol levels, your blood sugar, right? Because when you miss a ton of meals and your body starts to recognize blood sugar's too low, all of a
Mhm.
sudden cortisol spikes to try to rise that blood sugar. And that's where we see a lot of these blood sugar crashes, highs and
Mhm.
lows. That's where we also start to see insulin dysfunction too, is because blood sugar remains chronically elevated because of cortisol. And then your cells become less responsive to it. Um, so eating every 3 to 5 hours, super critical. I am a huge, huge proponent of eating about 1 gram of protein per ideal body weight
Mhm.
for your goal for the day. And there is a ton of variability to this, again, with RDAs, or you might have individuals who do have different needs given medical conditions, right? So this is not 100% black or white. But for
Mhm.
your average girly who is trying to balance hormones, looking to get 1 gram of protein per ideal or optimal, you know, goal weight, right? So for myself, I try to eat about 120 to 135 grams of protein,
Yep.
and that varies across my cycle. And
Mhm.
that's going to ensure that you have amino acids for hormone production. That's going to ensure that you have amino acids for lean mass development, for systemic function. It's going to help to balance your blood sugar. Like, really, protein is just amazing. I love it.
Yep.
And then carbs. Gosh, eat carbs. So like People laugh at me now because they think I'm just like carb queen over here. Because I'm like, I eat 283 grams of carbs a day, which is almost an
What are the best and healthiest sources of carbs?
ooh, I'm gonna challenge you on that one because I firmly believe that every food has the power to be a superfood if you know how to use it
Mhm.
correctly. So
Wow.
I even say, like, again, if you have really good metabolic flexibility and you know how to
Mhm.
train properly, you'll catch me eating candy right before a big lift. So I'm
Interesting.
never gonna say it's the healthiest form of carbs.
Okay.
But however, in that full picture, if you're trying to put all these puzzle pieces together for
Mhm.
your diet, for just optimal health, if
Mhm.
you're trying to consume like carbohydrates from fruits,
Yep.
one, amazing, because you're going to get a lot of micronutrients. You can
Mhm.
time your fruit intake to your hormone cycle to help support that. Also, that's going to pair with a lot of fiber, which is going to be
Mhm.
really good for your gut health. Also choosing, there's a lot more research on how um, the term glycemic index load isn't necessarily appropriate now. So I even
Mhm.
try to stay away from it. But again, choosing foods, if you're not super active or if you're not working out a ton, choosing foods that might have a lower reactivity for your blood sugar. So those are called like
Mhm.
low glycemic foods. So like oats, rice, sweet potato, even some potatoes are totally fine for individuals. Things that are going to provide you a lot of micronutrients, help you feel satiated, help to make sure that that bolus is properly moving through your gut so there's
Mhm.
not any erratic. And then of course I don't even count vegetables as carbs, right? Vegetables
Yeah.
are free game. So you hear some people say like, oh, eating starchy vegetables, like, no, like, to me they're not they're not carbs. Like,
Yeah.
those are a completely different thing. But there's so much carb fear
Mhm.
in women. And
Mhm.
so, in that going back to that original question, if you're eating every 3 to 5 hours, if you're prioritizing your proteins, I always say my plate looks like a protein, a carb, a phase fruit or veggie, right? That
Mhm.
is like how simple I make all of my meals. And you can copy paste that formula to breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, all in
Yep.
between, and you find that all of a sudden cravings are gone, you feel good, your
Yeah.
symptoms are gone because you're nourishing your body.
That's right. A lot of women still don't understand. They've heard gut health is important, gut health is
Mhm.
necessary, but they don't understand the connection between the gut and the hormones. So, if you could just walk through the importance of how the gut and the hormones are connected, that would be awesome.
Absolutely. So your gut truly an amazing system
Mhm.
because we're really two primary functions is it's either absorbing nutrients from your food so that your body can use those nutrients effectively,
Mhm.
or it's helping your body detox or take that food bolus or other things that need to be excreted from the body and pushing it out.
Mhm.
So in the terms of hormone production, it helps both production as well as filtration.
Mhm.
And when it comes to hormone production, making sure that you have a good, viable gut so that you're properly absorbing nutrients from your food, that is so critical because you can eat the most nutrient dense diet in the world. But if you have a ton of gut disruption and you're not absorbing those nutrients, with hormone production, your body uses the biochemical components of micronutrients to be able to fuel those enzymatic processes. And so if it doesn't have those keys, those components, it can't do those processes. So I see a lot of women who live in this space of they're eating like really healthy or clean, but not necessarily
Mhm.
eating enough. So a lot of that gut disruption leads to low nutrient absorption. And so that's a problem. But then
Mhm.
on the other side, your gut bacteria, your gut biome, they influence serotonin production, dopamine, and then there's even a subset of your gut bacteria called the estrobolome,
Yep.
which help to regulate and moderate, estrogen filtration out of your body.
Mm.
And for women, this is super critical because I'm seeing it more and more commonly now, at least with the handful of clients that I'm getting,
Yeah.
like at this certain particular set of time where it's individuals who have maybe not even enough active estrogen in their body,
Mhm.
but they're showing a ton of signs of estrogen dominance
Right.
because the gut is so disrupted that
Yeah.
there's estrogen production. It's not leaving via the gut, it's getting stored in your cells or your fat tissues.
Yeah.
And then I always say it's kind of like a storage bin.
Mhm.
When your fat cells hold estrogen and they also create their own form of estrogen. And then
Mhm.
as that bin gets full, it's like, oh, we need to create another fat cell to be able to
Yep.
hold more. And so what
Yep.
happens is then you're not having proper excretion of that estrogen out of the body. And that can be tenfold experienced if you're also on things like HRT or
Yep.
hormonal birth control. Um, so really, and then again, if your gut is disrupted, 95, I believe it's a percentage, 95% of your serotonin is made in your gut.
That's right.
Right. And so if we're experiencing a ton of anxiety, low mood swings, really going back to like, okay, what's happening with our biome, our bacteria? Is it diverse enough? Is it happy? Is it healthy? Because if we're
Yeah.
not feeling good, likely there's a huge gap there.
Another thing I would love to just jump into that had been mentioned earlier, and I think this is also something that just more education conversation needs to be built around, is kind of the differences of PMS and PMDD, because PMDD is just kind of starting to enter in the conversation. Not a ton of information on it, but I would love to have you walk through that. So, what are the differences between PMS and PMDD?
PMS is I feel like kind of PMS is like a BS
Yeah.
term of like what men created for women to just say like they're hormonal.
Yeah.
Because PMS is where we start to see that increase in just, mood swings or mood variability. Typically like those highs and lows are more easily agitated, a little bit more, emotional leading up to our period, which is often more correlated with the fact that either you don't have enough progesterone at all,
Mhm.
or your progesterone to estrogen imbalance or ratio is a little off, right? So maybe
Right.
progesterone tanked and then estrogen's not filtering out properly. So we have this big discrepancy that is
Mhm.
heightening those mood disruptions. Now, PMDD, this is where, and because I remember again in my own journey going into this space where one doctor was like, she just has PMDD. And I was like, oh, they didn't do any tests for it, right?
Yeah.
They didn't check my hormone levels to confirm it. They just called it this really, really severe version of
Mhm.
PMS. That's how they defined it to me. And even now in the literature that I've done for my reviewed for my clients, it seems very much that it's just kind of that, like, oh, it's just a very severe case of
Mhm.
PMS to the point
Mhm.
where they almost have, I used to joke, I called them like my rage blackouts. Just
Yeah.
get like so
Yeah.
angry and I didn't even know why. But again, I do believe that's still more correlated to the fact that there is some type of systemic hormone imbalance that is happening at a particular time of your cycle. Because both of those scenarios, they only flare in your luteal phase, right?
Wow.
Then they typically, the traditional course of treatment or action in our medical world is to just say, like, give a woman birth control because
Right.
the belief is that that synthetic estrogen and progesterone is going to like kind of just numb it, right?
Mhm.
So clearly, both are still very, very, very correlated because if that synthetic hormone can fix it,
Mhm.
then real hormone probably could fix it and like
Yeah.
I don't want to say cure it, right? You're not supposed to
Yeah.
say cure it anywhere, but like to that
Yeah.
extent. And if you look at those supplements, right? I mean, you probably know even more than me, right? But when you look at those supplements that are out there, it's typically nutrients like B vitamins,
Yep.
nutrients like vitamin E, magnesium, vitamin D. All of those nutrients, I know off the top of my head, are huge, huge progesterone production supporters.
Yep. Switch gears. There's a couple of other things to talk about. This was, not on the list per se, but I do think it's really interesting to ask. And maybe with your practice, you see men, maybe you don't. I would love to talk about men's hormone health because we have in recent interviews pertaining to fertility, right, talked about men's hormone health. But so this is a wild card question. I don't know if you see men or not, but what are some of the issues right now that men are facing with hormone health and metabolic health?
Again, men have a 24-hour hormone cycle. So what happens is basically the clock strikes midnight and they magically they magically reset, which is wonderful for them because it does provide that repeatability.
Mhm.
However, at certain times of the day, you see different influences of things like cortisol and testosterone, which are the primary drivers
Mhm.
of their just whole system function. And a lot more men than you think are dealing with high cortisol as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a lot of it is related to, I don't want to say the same exact thing, but there is a lot of pressure on men
Mm-hmm.
to perform, or, depending on, I think of our particular situation, my husband still travels for work.
Yeah.
He still they typically have jobs that are a little bit more demanding than
Mm-hmm.
women, just because of how our society is structured.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so we're seeing a ton of that. And where it starts to stem off is, men do produce more of their testosterone in their gonads, in their testes. However, there still is DHEA production. And then downstream, they can either have an overconversion of testosterone into dihydrotestosterone. So it's not usable, it's not viable for them. Or if they're starting to take, and this is huge, men just get, yeah, this happened with so many men. They get told, like, oh, your testosterone low, your energy's low, your libido's low. Let me just give you testosterone. Guess what? Their testosterone production system shut down the minute they get on testosterone. The minute they start those shots, they can never get off of them.
And that's you're referring to the like TRT, right? The
Yep,
testosterone replacement.
TRT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that's so important to know about TRT is that it really can negatively impact fertility.
That's huge. I mean, we were, again, speaking to it at our annual physicals with our doctor, and we were talking about,
Mm.
like, okay, what are the impacts on fertility? What are the impacts also on testicular cancer, right? They're
Yeah.
giving it to men younger and younger now, but it's like they're
Yeah.
still in that prime age, I think up until 35, where they're at a
Right.
huge risk of testicular cancer, and yet they're giving them TRT. And we start to
Yeah.
think, like, okay, this doesn't seem smart. But the other downstream, which is overlooked in men, especially if they're on TRT or any type of supplement that's going to increase testosterone, is estrogen. Because think about it.
Mm.
If typically the biochemical process to increase testosterone, especially if it's just supplementation versus TRT,
Mhm.
is to increase DHEA production. And then DHEA
Mhm.
gets split and either gets created into estrogen or testosterone. Obviously, percentage changes, depends on men or women. So there can be instances where there's increased estrogen production and then estrogen
Mhm.
dominance as a byproduct, right?
Mhm.
Um, not, and I do think that's overlooked in the same way that low testosterone is overlooked for women.
Instead of going through testosterone replacement therapy, what would you say to that man? What are some of the best things that they can do to naturally increase their testosterone production?
So one, same with women.
Mhm.
Again, it's the same conversation around fertility, men's fertility and women's.
Mhm.
Are you eating enough for your body to feel safe? Again, it's
Mm.
different for men because it's not
Yeah.
like they have to, help a human grow
Yeah.
per se. However, if they're not getting enough nutrients, more so what's going to happen for men is the gut is going to be disrupted via the gut brain axis.
Mhm.
And then that inflammation, degradation of the gut lining is going to influence their body's ability to absorb and utilize testosterone.
Yeah.
Right. So in some situations, it's not so much a production issue. It's hey, your gut is super inflamed. Right.
Mhm.
Also looking at, okay, overall systemic inflammation in the body as well. Are you eating whole foods? Are you trying to
Mhm.
avoid processed foods if they're traveling a ton? Making sure
Mhm.
that they get enough fiber,
Mhm.
and reducing any foods that could potentially be inflammatory for them. I don't believe in
Mhm.
blind inflammation. Same with women.
Yeah.
But are you eating dairy when you're
Yep.
like men are more likely to do this than women, I feel.
Yeah.
They know that they're lactose
And
intolerant,
just
that they're like, I'm still gonna
yeah.
eat it, and then they do.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's a huge factor.
Yeah.
Um, Another consideration, and some of these are super well studied, some of them are not, and
Mhm.
you have to be really mindful in how you introduce these supplements because they are cyclical in nature. But taking things like Fadoja and Tongkat Ali
Mm.
have been shown in some clinical studies to be effective at boosting, but also things like making sure you're taking enough zinc, vitamin
Yeah.
D, magnesium. Again, those are core supplements. That could impact, especially if there's nutrient gaps and individuals not eating enough or there's a ton of inflammation in the body.
Mhm.
Um, and then both for men and women, lifting weights, right? That is the single most impactful way to reduce circulating cortisol levels as well as to improve testosterone production in the body. And both are super receptive to it, both men and women.
Let's transition to exercise. Would love to hear kind of what you recommend mostly. And I think taking it from a hormone health perspective for men and for women, what are the workouts that you think are the best for hormone health and happiness?
And happiness. Oh, okay.
Insert one in
Well,
there.
this
It
is
is the name of your company.
it is. So this is again, I'm gonna I 1,000% resonate with you too as well. I
Yeah.
started teaching fitness when I was 19 and I was a bar instructor because I was
Yep.
cool back then. And
Yep.
I was a mad cardio bunny. I was afraid to get bulky.
Yep.
I didn't want to look big. I wanted toned muscle, which now hindsight, I'm looking at all of those like trigger words and I'm like,
Yeah.
good God.
Yep.
So the honest truth is strength training is the single most impactful exercise like form modality of movement possible, right? Strength training is the single most effective way to reduce circulating cortisol levels, to
Mm-hmm.
reduce estrogen dominance or improve estrogen filtration. It's the single most effective way to re-regulate your nervous system or have central nervous system regulation and activation. It is the best way to boost your testosterone levels. It's also one of the best ways to rewire your reward center in your brain,
Mm-hmm.
right? If we're talking about changing every single aspect of your life, you gotta pick up some weights.
Yep.
And now, this is where it's the kicker is though, is because I feel like on social media, and this is marketing 101, right?
Mm-hmm.
Always behind the curtain with me. Marketing likes to create villains, good
Yeah.
people, bad people, because then it really puts people on a side, right? So right now, there was a time where it's like, do a bunch of hit cardio, get
Yeah.
into soul cycle, be
Yeah.
so fit. And then now it's like, never run again in your life. If you get your heart rate over 120, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Right. And the truth is, you need both
Both.
synergistically.
Yep.
You need both synergistically because what they do together is they create an environment or improve your body's metabolic flexibility,
Right.
which is your body's ability to seamlessly switch between carbohydrate and fat burn
Yep.
at different times. So, in a state when you are active, you're moving, you're working out, for example, you're going to be using more carbohydrates. You're going
Mm-hmm.
to have more lean mass, more insulin sensitive cells on your body. Your body's going to be better at performance. But then, if you're doing something like sitting on a podcast talking, or
Yep.
working, or sleeping, your body effectively can tap into stored fat.
Yep.
And this is where that concept, kind of leaning into what you said of like you have a really frail 67-year-old, but you also have a woman who says, I'm 40 now and I can't lose any weight. It's
Mm-hmm.
because you don't have metabolic flexibility. It's not because your metabolism's slow. So really every single individual, man, woman, we need to be lifting weights. And when it comes to proper exercise physiology and applying these principles,
Mm-hmm.
you have to have repetition of a movement pattern
Mm-hmm.
to create physiological adaptation. Again, there's so much on social media right now that exercise is stressful. Stress is bad. Don't do it. If you have adrenal burnout, don't work out. And I just I want to scream
Yeah.
because yes, exercise is a stressor, but it's a positive stressor
Right.
that forces your body to recognize, oh my gosh, okay, I am not strong enough to do the job that she's demanding me to do.
Yeah.
I need to adapt and become better. So it's a physiological force to create physiological adaptation.
Yeah.
So that whole concept of I firmly believe in cycle syncing your workouts,
Yep.
but not in the way that it is pushed on social media. Because I
Yeah.
am sorry, you can't just lift weights in your ovulatory
Yeah.
phase one time a month and expect that's going to improve your
Yeah.
stress resiliency. It
That's
won't.
that's exactly right. Yeah, not at all. You've got to be doing it
No.
multiple times a week, every week. Yeah.
And this is where the concept of any good strength program has what's called a progressive overload and deload. Traditional progressive overloads were based off of men. And so they respond really well to a 6 or 8 week mesocycle or microcycle. Women have a 4 week hormone cycle, a 28-day hormone cycle that dictates your body's ability to handle progressive overloads, to build lean mass, to tap into fat oxidation, to recover.
Right.
And so if you're doing a 6 week progressive overload, or you don't even have one, right? If you're just going in there lifting 5 pound weights, 15 reps every single time, because you're afraid to get bulky,
Yeah.
that's not going to lead to change. And that's going to lead to overtraining in kind of two different arenas.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a bunch of different ways to apply this, right? But when you have a strength program that has a progressive overload time to your cycle,
Mhm.
when you have cyclical cardio, which is basically cardio, that interval style cardio that's aligned
Mhm.
with the intensities that you can handle at
Mhm.
different times of your cycle, that is where you find a program that you love and that you're happy with, because you can have, like, I know for me, I love to lift. I also love
Mhm.
to do Pilates. I also
Mhm.
love, just recently learned that I like to run.
Yeah.
I do it all. I
Yep.
lift sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, depending on where I'm at in my cycle and the
Yep.
intensity that I'm pushing. I also do different types of runs depending on my
Yep.
cycle and what I need. And then I also go and do a Pilates class or do
Yeah.
yoga on the beach or do something fun and really in my community. And all of a sudden, that when you lift like the workout like that, you get a lot of variety,
Yep.
even in your structure. You're never feeling like you have to go do a workout when it doesn't feel good for your body because you know how to switch it. And realistically, a good strength program like that, like if you can lift more than 3 times a week, you're not doing it right.
Yeah. Kind of in closing here, another thought and question that I had for you, which is so present in my mind right now, and I'm sure it is in yours as well. So you have a 3-year-old daughter. My daughter's a little younger than yours. I'm pregnant with another girl, which is awesome, but it's also just thank you. It's really bringing, these conversations to life of, okay, we went through this 90s, 2000s. Now we have these daughters that are going to be raised. How do you look at the next generation of hormone health and how we're raising our daughters and sons, right? But how we're raising our children? What are some of the things, if you were to wave a magic wand, you hope that happen?
Oh, I love this question because I felt so blessed to have a daughter. I didn't realize
Mhm.
I wanted a daughter until I found out I was having
Yeah.
one.
Likewise.
Because I was like, I get to change it,
Yep.
right? Because I know,
Yep.
and God, love you, mom, if you're
Yep.
gonna listen to this in the future. But like, I remember her telling me, like, you're gonna get your period, and it's gonna suck and be
Mhm.
painful, and that's what my mother told me, and you're just gonna have to suck it up, right?
Yep.
And we have the opportunity to be so different.
Mhm.
And so one thing that I think, again, this is like a bring this to, I don't know, city council meeting, the poll, I don't
Mhm.
even know. Like, we have to reform, first off, how we're teaching women
Mhm.
about their health in,
Mhm.
like, I mean, again, one anecdotal experience is I went to a private Christian school when I was very young. And so, like, they didn't even teach me about my hormones until I hit high school because,
Oh,
like, it was just like,
I
no,
didn't
don't talk
learn
about it.
really anything about hormone health until I was, like, late 20s and planning to get married and considering having kids within the next year or 2.
Yeah. Like, they glossed over it in my high school health class. And I remember like arguing with my teacher. I was like, this doesn't make sense how you're teaching it.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, you know, so one, knowledge is power. And so
Mhm.
how we communicate what our period is, what it means, teaching our daughters, like,
Mhm.
I know I she hears me now because she hears me voice message my clients, but like,
Yeah.
I am going to have like a very open conversation about like everything that
Yeah.
has to relate to periods and be like, hey, this is what your symptoms mean. This is what we do about it, right?
Yeah.
That one in and of itself, I think, is going to support so many positive things for our future generation. And then two, I've been really the reform, and this starts, I don't even know if social media is on it, but like
Mm.
how we communicate how and what nutrition is to
Right.
women. Because I firmly believe that if you were to ask any woman on the sidewalk or on the street, like, what is nutrition? They'd respond as like, it's a diet, it's keto, it's, no low FODMAPs. What is that? What is another one called? I can't think of the name. That was really popular. Something protocol, whatever. But like, they think that nutrition is some type of manipulation of their food to get some type of aesthetic. And not nutrition is the science to nourish your body to sustain life, right? And we know that hormones are happy when they're nourished.
It's a life force, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and I think this goes into, again, a cultural shift that is very
Hmm.
difficult, but I really hope happens. And I think the
Yeah.
reality is that it'll happen for some and it won't for others, which is a whole other,
Mhm.
conversation. But and then the last question, which I think is just trying to be, incredibly helpful and kind of consolidate some of what we've talked about. So this is a hard one and a loaded one, but what's one small and actionable step that you'd recommend to a woman that just feels stuck?
I honestly think that the most actionable thing that you can do, there is not and especially like if you're listening to this, you know that there's not a shortage of resources on like, hey, if this is what my symptom means, this is how I can start to support it.
Mhm,
Tracking your symptoms like a scientist,
mhm,
not not in as a frustrated you, right? And I
mhm,
say this because like I remember when I was super frustrated with my autoimmunity flares, with everything that was going on, when my whole system felt broken, I didn't approach it as a scientist. It was just like, I feel like this, I feel shitty, I feel like just kind
yeah,
of like zoning in this deficit mindset.
yeah,
Whereas if you start to track, this is the symptom I experienced. This is when in my cycle that I had it. This is when I ovulated. All of a sudden, you look at it constructively and you can then go forth and use all the resources that are out there and be like,
mhm,
okay, I didn't ovulate. Why? What could I eat to nourish that? Right? Or
mhm,
I did have, a really, really low progesterone symptoms in my luteal
mhm,
phase. Maybe I will choose adding in things like spinach or dark chocolate
mhm.
to help boost magnesium levels naturally, right?
Yeah,
Having tracking your symptoms, that knowledge is power.
that's
And so
right.
starting there, but trying to separate the emotion from it so that you can
Yeah,
see, not just the forest, but you can see above the trees and into the horizon.
that's a great point. Well, thank you so much, Tasha. This has been a wonderful, wonderful discussion. I think productive in many ways, and frankly, as I always say, at the end of these podcasts, I just think this is going to help a lot of people, and I learned a
Gosh, I'm so
ton.
excited.
So I know the audience is going to learn a ton. But thank you so much for your time, and just recap here how the audience can find you, where they can find your work, and if they want to reach out, how can they interact with you?
I feel like the best place to start is I am a on Instagram. I love Instagram. It's my favorite. So you can find me there. My name is just Tasha Lynn underscore Stevens. Also, you can check out our website, Happy Hormone Health LLC.com. And we do have a free hormone assessment there, which is a fun place to start. Because we created this, opportunity to be like, okay, these are the symptoms that you're experiencing, based on these patterns. This is typically, what's that linked to? And here's some actionable steps based off of that to start supporting your body.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to the Gut Check podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a comment below. Let us know what you think, like the episode, and share it with friends and family who may also benefit from learning about these important and educational health and wellness topics. You can find the Gut Check podcast on YouTube, also on Spotify, Instagram, and TikTok. The Gut Check podcast is brought to you by our team at Daily Nori. Daily Nori makes probiotic and prebiotic solutions accessible to all because good health starts with gut health. To learn more about Daily Nori, please go to www.dailynori.com. Thank you.